Everybody, welcome to this live from me, Beth, on what I like to call WorkJoy Wednesday. I'm going to wait for a few people to join in before we get started properly. It's lovely to see you. It's actually sunny where I am right now, which is a bit of a change for this week and is making me feel quite joyful. Just taken the dog for a stroll around. She didn't want to put a lead on for ages, so it took quite a long time, but it was good fun once we got out. I can see some people joining. Hello, welcome. So lovely to see you. Lovely to have you on board here for today's WorkJoy Wednesday. I can see Becky's joining there. Welcome. Hello. Today's session, and when we get going, I'm going to go through a few things. I've realised I've not really done a proper introduction of myself, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about me, which seems very selfish of me, but I'm going to do it for a very short amount of time. I'm going to talk about some reflections I have on Mental Health Awareness Week, which was last week, and generally in mental health together, because I think joy is one of those things that can be really helpful for mental health, but it can also feel quite hard to get to if you're struggling in that area. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about some of the things in my world that help me to maintain good mental health and good well-being. Not perfect all the time, but it's good to know about. I'm going to give you some updates on the WorkJoy Way, which is our coaching program. Talk to you a little bit more about that, what it is, how it works, where we're at with the cohort who are currently on it, our spring 2021 cohort, and how you could sign up to the next cohort, which is in the autumn. I want to talk a little bit about the WorkJoy Jam and the podcast so that you can get an update of what's going on there. And then just some next steps and things that you can do, maybe some suggestions. And throughout, I would love to open this up to questions. So if you have any questions at all, pop them in the comments. If you are watching this on replay, and we will put it out there on as a recording, if you're watching on replay, again, if you pop your questions in the comments, I will come on and make sure I answer all your questions. Just because you can't be here live with me doesn't mean you don't get that opportunity. So welcome, Laura. I think you've joined since I said hi. And Susan, lovely to see you here today. So let me start with a proper welcome. I'm Beth Stallwood, and I have been working in the field of people and organisational development for coming up to 20 years now. Seems scary saying that. And I've been working as a consultant. I've worked in-house in different types of organisations. I've worked as a facilitator and a coach in lots of different things, but all to do with people, whether that's an individual or an organisation, and helping them to maybe do their people stuff better or differently, or helping individuals to take some ownership and coaching them through some challenging times, or to help them get to where they want to be in their career, or to help them in the big grand scheme of life and work and all the things that come together. And I started WorkJoy thinking about it probably just over a year ago, but it's something that I think has been in my head for quite a long time, and it took me a global pandemic to actually start getting it out of my head and into something that is usable, that people can get involved in, that you can start making a difference in your life through. And it started in that time as the idea for a book called WorkJoy. And it was all about how do you create and cultivate joy in your working life. And it's really come from the background that I see so many people getting stuck in their working life, feeling like they don't get much joy in their work, maybe focusing on some of the things that aren't so good, some of the negative bits, some of the frustrations, the annoying things. Those things all exist in the real world. But also a sense that people find it hard to help themselves when they're in that zone. And I personally believe that work can be massively fulfilling, it can be life affirming, it can be engaging, it can be really satisfying. Yet, on the other side of things, the thing that I call the work gloom end, I also think it can be frustrating, annoying, boring, disempowering, disengaging, all of the meh words that just make you feel not so good. And my mission with WorkJoy, whether that's in the book that I'm going to finish writing this year. You heard it here. It will happen. Whether it's through things like this on the lives, whether it's through the podcast or the coaching program or the things that are still to come, some surprises for you coming later on this year. I think that there's so much we can do to notice, to understand, to really work on cultivating some joy in our lives. And when we work on joy in our lives in general, it works for work and it works for life, because we aren't two separate people, the work us and the home us. It might feel like we are sometimes, but actually if you get joy in work, it spills over into your home life. If you get joy in home, it spills over into your work life. And it has a bit of that rolling stone effect where it catches stuff and it kind of gathers you up. And what I often find is that we over-dramatise, we catastrophise some of the stuff that is in the work gloom space. And it's so lovely to be able to think a little bit more in the zone of how do we create some reality, what's really going on here. So it's become a bit of a mission of mine to help people to create and cultivate this joy in their working life. And it is not, and I always give this caveat, it is not ever about that false positivity or about being happy all the time. Because I think being happy all the time is a goal we can set ourselves, but it's one that we will most often be disappointed with. Because do you know what? Being happy all the time in life isn't what we're designed to be. There are ups and downs in life. There are tragedies and disappointments and things that don't go right, and grief and terrible things that can happen to us in our lives. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen in the film by Pixar, the Inside Out film, and actually the whole story when it comes to it is that you can't feel joy if you don't have sadness and the other emotions with you. So this is about really capitalising on the moments where you have it. It's not about faking a smile and saying everything's fine here when it isn't, because equally that's not very good for our mental health either. So what I'm trying to do is to help people recognise what joy they have, to build it, to grow it, to feel it, to understand it, to know what really works for them. So that's my thinking around WorkJoy. And I thought that maybe I'd go into a little bit about getting a really good baseline for WorkJoy. And sometimes it's not about being joyful all the time or feeling gloomy all the time. You're in that middle space, the neutral. And from neutral, it's easy to tip either way. And something I really, really believe in is that mental health is really, really important to us all. And Mental Health Awareness Week, I kind of think that every day should be Mental Health Awareness Day. We should all be talking about this and thinking about it more. But there's something here about how do I link that in my head to WorkJoy and how can I help you link it there? And I think one of the questions I often ask myself when I'm looking at things like WorkJoy and I'm looking at mental health and how does that all fit together with well-being, and there are so many different things that come off it, little tentacles of lots of different areas, is to think about what's really for you as an individual, be different for everyone, but what's the foundation of your good well-being? And that could be physical well-being, mental well-being, whatever version of well-being looks like. How do you get you in a good place to be able to feel and recognise joy, to be able to work with your colleagues, to be able to have a great sense of satisfaction at work and at home? How does that work for you? And I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I was talking to some other people around it. And I came up with the question that I was asking myself, and I'd love to ask you the question. So in the comments, pop something in for me. It would be really helpful. And the question is, for you as an individual, what is the foundation of your well-being? What is the thing that if you really take care of it, if you spend some time on it, if you look after it, if you put it on your to-do list, if you make it part of a habit, make it part of every day, what is the thing for you that really helps you to be in a really good space for your well-being? So while you hopefully type some comments in, and I should hopefully see them coming up, I would talk to you for a little bit about what mine is. Give me a second. I've got terrible hay fever at the moment. So, self-care. Oh, lovely to see that. That thing about looking after yourself. And for me, when I put that label of self-care, and I hear lots of people not like the word self-care, and I'm a bit, find it quite hard as well. is self-care somehow seems selfish, and it's not. Self-care is really important, but we don't have the words to describe this stuff. In our language, selfish is most often associated with being a bad and negative trait. Whereas self-care is looking after yourself, and, you know, that idea that you can't pour from an empty cup. I said that to somebody earlier, and they said, but you can't really pour from a cup, can you? So it's like pouring from an empty teapot. And I'm like, okay, whichever version works for you. So I can see here self-care, getting outdoors. Yeah, the whole theme of this year's Mental Health Awareness Week was around nature and being outdoors. Totally agree with you there, Becky. And then exercise, walking, and the more and more research goes into this, which is great that it's being researched now. The more that exercise, walking's like amazing for you. I have to say that lockdown has been brilliant for that for me. Getting a dog has been the best thing ever. I've done a couple of walks today already. Getting outdoors, having that exercise, being freed from desks and technology. Laura's saying, reminding myself of what I've got and not what I haven't got. Remember that thing, we always focus on the negative stuff. Our brains are designed for it. Not a neuroscientist, but it's very easy to get stuck into all the things that are wrong because our brains highlight them for us, and they're like big warning signals. All these things that are wrong, you need to fix them. And actually, when we really pay attention to it, there is a lot more joy to be had. There's a lot more joy you're already having, but somehow the gloom, the stuff that doesn't work so well for you, is something that can appear like a mountain, when if you actually really unpick it, it's a bit of a molehill, and you probably have more like a mountain of amazing bits of joy. So there's something there about balancing the reality versus what we think, or the story we tell ourselves, or the habits we get ourselves in. So Becky's saying practicing mindfulness, great. For some people, it's just the absolute best thing to be able to do. For me, there are a couple of things, but the absolute foundation one for me, and I can tell you the difference it makes in my working life and home life, is it's just enormous, and it's sleep for me. If I get a good night's sleep, and I didn't for many years, and I'll tell you more about that. If I get a good night's sleep, everything that happens the following day has a nice shiny thing to it. It feels easier. My world feels better. My conversations feel more exciting. If I get a bad night's sleep, or the worst, a many bad night's sleep on the trot, everything else feels much harder. I start the day worse, got less patience, I'm not able to see the good things, I feel like I can't really go and exercise because I'm too tired, and it's not a very great way of living. And I spent many years, I think my mum still bears the scars of my not sleeping very well. I think it started when I was a baby and just continued on. Not being a good sleeper. I struggled to get to sleep. I struggled to stay asleep. Really tough stuff. And over the last 5 years, I worked really hard on it because it is something that I found so hard. If you go into the room next door to here, what you will find is what my husband calls the pillow graveyard, which is about 20 different pillows that I reserve for anyone who might come and stay. Not that anyone can come and stay right now, can they? That are ones that I have tried and rejected. Mattresses and eye masks and sprays and all of these different things. And I tried all of it. So if you take any book or any guide or anything about how to do sleep, I did everything. And I finally found some ways that really work for me. And I don't know if anyone's interested. I can tell you some of the stuff that I did. I'll tell you a few bits now. If you want to find out more, pop something in the comments and I will tell you. And I would now rate myself most of the time as a good sleeper. And I would have said before, terrible sleeper. So here's a couple of things. Go to bed a bit earlier. I know. I'm like going to bed before 10 o'clock most school nights now. So giving that a go works. There's something about actually slightly earlier rather than slightly later helps me. The other thing is I do a little brain dump, maybe just on a piece of paper. I've actually got a bit of stationery for it because I have a bit of stationery for everything. But doing that, getting the stuff out of your head ready for the next day can be really helpful. I used to, and I still find myself occasionally doing this, sit there with stuff whirling around my head, and I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I would wake up thinking about it. Getting it on a piece of paper, deciding what you want to do with it the next day can be really helpful. Here's a big one. I stopped drinking caffeine. If you'd have asked me 3 years ago if I would ever give up caffeine, I'd be like, no, I need it. I have to have it. I was a black coffee drinker. I loved it. And I actually gave up for a different reason. I gave up caffeine because I was really struggling with migraines. And it was one of the things that they said, don't drink caffeine for a while and see if it's that. Turned out it was something completely different causing them. Nothing to do with the caffeine. But I stopped because of that. And every day I'm just making the choice not to do it. It's been about 2.5 years now. And it's not I didn't decide to stop drinking caffeine. I did it one day for a few weeks to see if it helped. And it didn't help the migraines. But I started after a few weeks. And the first few weeks were just horrendous. So, be prepared. It's proper withdrawal. The first few weeks were horrendous. Then the next few weeks, I started to get this more sense of calm, able to sleep, sleeping better, not waking up so much in the middle of the night. And the other things that I have are now like a proper sleep mask. Makes a difference to me. I've got one from Mum to Sleep, which you can change the bits in. So there's normal ones, which are total blackout, or you can have scented ones, which I haven't got, or you can have little cooling ones, which are quite nice. And I also have a little spray from This Works, it's called Deep Sleep Spray. But I think it's about knowing that that's really important for you. This is just my example. And actually getting more sleep brings me more joy. So it's really important. I invest in it, I make it happen. It's not perfect, it doesn't happen every week, every day. When I have a bad night now, I really feel it. And I really it's horrible and I hate it. But have a little think and give it a go. Oh, Susan, silk pillowcase. Oh, I might have to give that a try. Transform my sleep. That's a really interesting point about the menopause and how things change at different stages of our lives. One of the other things that I actually do that I forget to tell people is really important is I always sleep with the window open. And that's because I read some studies about how oxygen dips throughout the night, especially if you live in quite a well-insulated house. The oxygen really, really dips and that can actually really, really affect your sleep. So we've heard a few bits about what are the foundations of for the people on live, your really good mental health, for your well-being. And what I'd love you to all just think about, and this is the WorkJoy way of doing things, is what's a simple thing that you could do right now to really help yourself with your mental health? If that is some self-care, what does that self-care look like for you? What is the right combination? And Becky's just said, I think it's finding the right combo. For me, it was burning lavender oil. Yeah, love a bit of lavender, bedtime yoga, and falling asleep to soundscapes on the Calm app. You see, great recommendations there from Becky at the Mindful Ginger Nut as well. So some really interesting things you can do. I would just always think, if mental health, there's a whole range of things. Maintaining good mental health is different to what you might do if you are struggling with a mental illness. Hello, I just paused a second. Apparently it could use a connection, but I am back here. And I always think if you need to have a conversation about it, have a conversation, find a trusted friend, trusted colleague, talk about it. If it gets to the point where you don't think it's something that you can handle, then that's the time to reach out to somebody. Maybe it's a professional, maybe it's your doctor, because it's really hard to know what to do sometimes. And please just do the stuff that helps you look after yourself, but also know where those boundaries are for actually, this is where I need some more help with this. And that might be where you get some advice, some guidance from a professional, not from someone like me who just worked it out myself about how sleep was the thing for me. So that's a little bit of reflection on Mental Health Awareness Week, on the things that I do to kind of maintain a really good level. And I think if I look at some of those foundations, sleep being the really big one for me, the rest of it seems easier to handle. So it's like tackling some of those things first, taking some easy actions. Experimenting is one of the big parts of WorkJoy, trying these things out, working on that combination that will work for you. Oh, and I'm interested, Becky, there about soundscapes on the Calm app. I haven't tried them yet. I did try stories, but I get too excited about what's going on the stories and get really into it. The other big tip, actually, here's one, and it was from Lizzie Nichol on the podcast. She actually said there's some research now is that if you're reading before bed, read fiction, not fact, because apparently that makes a difference into how well you might sleep. There we go. So, any other thoughts? Oh, Becky's laughing at me, probably about the I get too into the stories. I get really interested. Doesn't quite work. But yoga doesn't work for me either. That's not my thing. My version of yoga is playing the piano, because I am so bad at it that I have to concentrate so fully on what I'm doing that I cannot possibly think about anything else. There will be some things that you have in your life. Work with them. Use the strengths that you've built. Find a way of making it happen for you. What's next? So the next on my list of things to talk about is the WorkJoy Way. And we are in week 4 with our spring cohort with 8 wonderful humans going through our 16-week coaching program. And for those of you that have never experienced coaching before, there are so many different versions of it and so many different definitions of it. And the one that I have come to use, especially in the context of the WorkJoy Way, when we're doing our one-to-one coaching, or when we're doing the group coaching, or even when people are doing the experiments, the exercises that come as part of the program, is that coaching is really about getting some of the stuff that's in your head out of your head and either onto a piece of paper or into a conversation so that you can understand it, pick it apart, analyse it, work out what it is, and then move to some kind of action. Maybe it's something small that you want to work on. Maybe it's a hurdle that you want to get over. Maybe it's a habit that you need to change. But it's one of those things about, if it's within our heads, it often gets misshaped into something bigger than it is. It can often be something that we need some help with, but we're not sure how to talk about. And that's where coaching can make a real difference. And there are loads of different types of coaching. There's life coaching, there's career coaching, there's sports coaching, which is where many of you may have heard it from. And there's this thing called executive coaching, which makes it sound very, very fancy. And it's what I do, but this is about thinking about you as an individual, how you'll come across at work. And actually it's broader than that. It's actually about you and how you live, how you behave, what's going to work for you in the future. So they're on week 4, and the first 4 weeks they have worked through a document called This Is Me. And this is about understanding who they are, what they get some joy out of, what are some of the things they're working through, what do they want to achieve through the programme. In week 2, they do a fantastic exercise, which is called the tracker. And it's where for a whole week you track your work joy and your work gloom, and then look at it and reflect on it and say, interesting. What does this mean? Is it about the timing of what I'm doing? Is there something about I need to look after myself a bit more? Is there something about I need to have some conversations with some people and just really understand where you're at? And that can be a bit revelationary actually for people, finding out what's going on and what's really happening under the skin of themselves and working through that. Last week, week 3, we had our first group coaching session. The first one's always a lot about getting to know each other, to understand each other and supporting each other. And it's one of the things I was so keen on having in this coaching program. And there are hundreds of coaching programs out there. But this one is that combination of one-to-ones with me as a professional coach, group coaching with me as the facilitator, but the conversations happening with the people that you are on the program with, and then the individual parts, the solo experiments, the things that you go and work on. And I think that connection, the combination of those 3 things, where you have other people, different perspectives. And what's great is people come from all different backgrounds, different industries, different levels of experience. And it's so great to see how people can support and help each other. And you create this incredible network of people from it. And this week, what we're working on is a solo experiment called Squads. And this is looking at who you have in your network, how are they supporting you, how are they bringing you joy, what are their different roles they're playing, who's missing, who you might want to add in and bring in and keep as part of your squad. And also we then flip the play and look at how are you showing up for other people and supporting them, because that is also something that brings people an immense amount of joy. And then next week, we're focusing on our one-to-one coaching sessions where we get really deep and dive under the skin of what's going on. And that's where I can really help and support. So it's a 16-week program. It's a combination of a number, I think it's 8 individual exercises, those solo experiments, 3 one-to-one coaching sessions with me, and 4 group coaching sessions. Our next program starts hot off the press on the 1st of September. And if you are interested in talking more about that, I've got some slots open. You can find them in the link in my bio, online. It would be lovely to see you, to talk to you, half an hour chat, totally free. We can talk about the programme. I don't do big sales pitches to people. If it's right for you, if I'm the right coach for you, if it's the right program for you, then fantastic. But let's have that conversation. And you can find more out about the program on the website, www.createworkjoy.com. There's a whole section on all the things that you go throughout that program. So it's so great to be having this session. We're in cohort 2. Cohort 3 starts in the autumn, 1st of September. More information on that to come. And actually, if you want to be the first people to hear more about what's coming with WorkJoy, it always goes to the newsletter first. The newsletter for May went out today. If you aren't signed up, if you look at the link in the bio, or we'll pop it in the comments when we load this, you can sign up. It's once a month, so it's not a massive thing that you have to commit to reading. Once a month, not too long. We'll just give you all of the updates, some hints and tips and some things that you can go and think about. So I would love to talk to you more about that program. Book in, let's have a chat. Let me find out more about you. You can find out more about me and see if it's the right thing for you. Okay, we're getting near to the end. I wanted to also talk to you today about the WorkJoy Jam, the podcast. And what I'd love you to do is, I think you can do little emojis. Who's listened to any or some of the podcast? And latest stats are, I think we're at 870 listens, which is amazing. I have no idea what the average podcast gets, but I am immensely pleased that we have that many. And I have a little dream of my own, and I'll say it to you now. One of my little goals is to maybe get that to 1,000 listens before we launch season 2. And season 2 will be coming mid-June, exact date to be confirmed. It is currently fully recorded, and it is now with my wonderful producer Simon, who is putting all the music in and making it all shiny and ready to come out to you. And it did start as a little dream, and I think some of you, oh hi Monica, welcome, may have heard me say for a number of years, I really want to do a podcast. And I had no idea what to do it by. And when I started thinking about WorkJoy, I was like, this is the thing. This is what I want to do it on. I definitely feel it. And I've been gathering experts and different people from different backgrounds and experiences to talk to me about, from their world, what brings them WorkJoy. What can they recommend? And 16 brilliant people from my squad who, I am immensely grateful to, said, yeah, I'll do it. There was no... I had no background in it. I had no idea what I was doing. And I just started it. And sometimes just starting things kind of gets the ball rolling. And now here we are, 6 months later, heading into starting to record season 3 in a couple of weeks' time. So what I wanted to do today was to say a huge thank you. And a huge thank you to Kath, to Anna, to Rimla, to Jordan, to Jodie, to Sadia, to Melissa, to Simon, to Harriet, to Lizzie, to Joe, to Kirk, to Lucy, to Janie, to Kate, and to this week's spotlight on the final episode of Series 1, to Leon. I am so grateful that you took a punt and went with me on this when it had never been out there, no one knew what it was going to be like. And to everybody who has listened to an episode, a couple of episodes. I know some people have been listening along week by week. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been helpful. I'd love to know if you've had a favourite episode, what that was and why it was great for you. I had some great feedback, a couple of great bits of feedback the other day, which really made me very, very proud and a little bit emotional. The first one was somebody who actually lives up the road from me texted me on Instagram. Well, it's not called text, is it? Instant message, is that right? On Instagram. And said, because of listening to the episode with Lucy Gallagher on the side hustle and how she works and makes the life work with having her own business and working organisation, that she'd actually worked with her work to go down to 4 days a week so that she could really focus on building her yoga business. And I was like, that's amazing. That's the kind of thing that you just think, wow, how did that happen? And I also had another bit of feedback from the other day from somebody who said, Beth, I've been listening to them when I go out on my morning walks. And one thing I love is it's like just sitting there and listening into a conversation, like eavesdropping on it. And for me, that's just perfect. We don't edit them. We only edit them if stuff goes wrong. And in terms of stuff going wrong, I don't mean like we're laughing, because you'll hear a lot of laughing with each other and talking over and all that kind of normal human stuff. But if like the internet cuts out, that's the only time we edit a couple of bits together. And so it really is amazing. And I just wanted to be open and say thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Season 2 we have coming up. We did give a few sneak peeks of who's coming. We have authors, we have experts in imposter syndrome, we have someone who was a dancer in the West End and has now set up an online business. We have people who are working in organisations, leading organisations and leading with WorkJoy. There's a whole range of people. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm going to keep doing it. Number one, because I love having those conversations. And number two, because everyone else seems to be enjoying listening to them as well. So thank you all. I love it. And also what I would love to know, if you obviously, if you do have a favourite, pop it in. I'd love to know which ones are floating your particular boat. The other thing I'd love to know is I've got about 4 people set up already for season 3, which will be out in the autumn. I would love to know who else would you like me to try and get. I know last time Becky suggested, can we go and get Joe Wicks? I'll try, is what I'll say. I'll try. I'll give it a go. But yeah, who else would you like to hear from? And I really like to choose unusual people as well. So not just people who are famous, but people who've got an interesting background, who've done things a bit differently, people who are in business, the real world of things. Hello, Rachel. Welcome along. So love to hear all of those things from you. Now, I know I've kept you on here for like half an hour. This is probably our longest live ever. Next steps wise, coming soon. I'm going to be launching soon something called Club WorkJoy. And sorry, I'm just seeing, got totally distracted. Becky saying, asking for a favour is like asking who someone's favourite child is. Okay. Fair enough. Maybe you've got a few. Maybe there were particular ones that you really, really loved. And I honestly do think that people do have favourite children. Not that I'm jealous of my sister or anything, but we'll see. Anyway, what things that are coming soon? Club WorkJoy. I'm not going to tell you any more than the name. It is, I will probably in our next live be able to tell you a little bit more about it. It's going to be something that you can join up to, that will be an amazing community of people who are all trying to do more with joy in their working lives. So I will tell you more soon. Get on the newsletter and we can share that with you. What I would really encourage you to do is to think about your joy in your life. And if you can do some tracking, do it. It's really worth it. It's an activity I do quite a lot and keep thinking about. What is bringing you joy? What isn't? How do you work on more of that? How do you work on actually managing some of the stuff that is more in the gloomy side of things? Maybe if you haven't tried the podcast yet, or if you haven't listened to all of them, go and listen to a few more. I do think it's a bit of pick and mix, which ones really inspire you, but maybe go back to some of the ones that you haven't listened to. You know, maybe you could help support me get to that 1,000 number. It seems like quite a nice goal. I have nothing to compare it to, but I just quite like the roundness of the number. And also, what I would love to know from you, whether you are live today or whether you're watching on the replay, is what subjects do you want me to come on and talk about doing on the lives? So I am totally up for doing some crowdsourcing of, Beth, come and talk to us about this subject or this subject or this subject. So today I talked quite a lot about sleep, because it came to mind when I was thinking about Mental Health Awareness Week. What I would love to know is, what subjects would you like me to come on and wax lyrical about, give some advice about, take a perspective on. Right, before we finish off, before I let you all go to wherever you are in your day, what questions do you have for me? And I'm going to take a little sip of water while I wait for any questions to come in. I think there's a slight delay. So is there anything? I'm just going to look through and check that I haven't missed any questions as we go through. Can't see anything coming in. What I will say is, when this is on replay, if you do have questions, don't think you've missed the opportunity to get me to answer them because you haven't asked them live. please do pop them in the comments and I will come back to you and answer all of them, or pop a suggestion in for something to do on another live. There's something, I think this is only my third live, so I'll do more and more of them as we go through and we get more things that you want me to talk about. So do tell me those things. Right, I'm just going to look one more time for any questions that are coming in. Let me come a little bit closer so I can read. Oh, Rachel, what's brought me joy this week? Oh, love this. Couple of things. So I did a presentation on Monday and I found out afterwards, not during, that actually the presentation was to 1,400 people. And when you're doing it online, you just kind of talk to a screen versus talking to real humans, a bit like I'm doing now. And in the real world, if you're in a room with 1,400 people, you would really feel it. But it's been a big learning experience for me doing these things online. I am used to doing things on a stage and with humans. And I'm actually starting to really enjoy doing the digital stuff. And it is something that if you'd have heard me a year and a half ago, I would be like, no way am I doing that. I need the real humans. And I do still need the real humans. I do need you all. But I think there is something around the power of getting more people involved, getting out there to more people through the power of digital. So that's one big thing, was doing that. And I've had lots of lovely messages and comments from the people who were on it who really enjoyed the session. So that for me was great. I love a bit of feedback. And something else that brought me joy this week is I've been working in the background for a few weeks now, and every week I give it a further with it on the shape and what Club WorkJoy is going to look like for you all. And I'm loving thinking about that, getting it prepared, getting it ready. It's not quite ready to tell you all about yet, but there's some really good things to come with it. So that, thinking about the new stuff. So yeah, that's something where I really, really want to go. Mum of Girls Squad says, you're so good at the digital stuff. Always love your 30% club stuff. Oh, thank you. That's really nice to hear. It's definitely been a whole new world of adventure for me into this land of digital. And it's really lovely when we get feedback to say that it actually works. Because when you're live in a room with people, I can tell whether it's working because I can see people's faces when I'm doing things like this. It's like, put it out there and see what happens. And that's been a real process of trusting in myself, which has been a really good unplanned bit of development work for me. And I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much. And thank you, Rachel, for asking that question. And it's one I'd ask back to all of you, whether you're listening live or listening on replay, is what is it that's brought you some work joy this week? And how can you use that to help you? How can you do more of that? How can you make it work for you? So tell me some stuff. Put in the comments what you would like me to talk about, or say to me, Beth, don't do these lives anymore. They're terrible. We don't want them. You don't have anything we want you to talk about. Just put some suggestions in if you want to. It's lovely to have been here with you all today. Thank you all for tuning in live, and thank you to everyone who is watching on replay. This has been a WorkJoy Wednesday live. I will be coming to you again in a few weeks' time if you're up for it, and I will be hopefully telling you a little bit more about some of the other developments. So go watch the podcast. If you're interested in the coaching program, sign up to do a 30-minute call with me. Let me talk you through, see if it's right for you. And we'll be starting that on the 1st of September. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your evening. And I will see you soon. Bye.